guys, you're watching and listening to Out of the Box podcast with Rosie, Tran. I'm so excited today to have a very special guest, Valencia Foster. She is the Southern California chapter leader for the Free Mom Hugs nonprofit. Valencia, how are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you, Rosie? Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So for the listeners and watchers, a little bit of background. I actually went to a benefit, a comedy show benefit to support this amazing group, and I found out about it. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about the background of Free Mom Hugs? Because I didn't know anything about it before we met.
So Free Mom Hugs is an organization that was started or founded by Sarah Cunningham, a mom who had struggled with her sons coming out. And she had kind of decided, after going to a Pride event, that she wanted to do more to support the LGBTQIA community. And the story is that she fashioned a button with paper and tape, and the button said "Free Mom Hugs." And at some point, she decided that she was going to create a nonprofit around the mission of Free Mom Hugs, which is education, visibility, and the celebration of LGBTQIA lives. But I think that the initial drive or movement started from hugging. And so, it's a very intimate gesture. It's easy. I mean, someone like me who had not really been an ally or an advocate for my own son who identifies as bi now, it had not been a journey for me as far as being an ally until I was moved and inspired by what I saw Sarah doing with Free Mom Hug. So in 2019, I joined when this whole movement kind of went national and it went viral. And so I got involved at that point and just volunteered to go out and hug people. And the movement has progressed and my involvement has progressed. But initially, it was just one mom supporting her son and going to a Pride event.
Yeah, and I think it's really positive because I think right now with the narratives that are going on in the mainstream media, there's a lot of divisiveness. And so, a hug is, like you said, such an intimate gesture. It's spreading love, right?
Absolutely.
I think we bonded at the event because I told you my husband actually used to have a company called Hug Me Teas. And so that was our mission with Hug Me Teas. Which is now a defunct entity, but we were going around just, obviously this was pre-COVID, but just spreading love by giving a hug. So we had our shirts on that said, hug me. And I think that's so important, especially in the community that you're talking about, because a lot of people can feel really isolated. So I'm sure that can save lives and also make people feel connected or loved in a situation that might not always be easy.
The point that you're making about, those simple gestures of affirmation and love saving lives is really true. I mean, there are a bunch of different statistics by different organizations. You can check with the Trevor Project, the Human Rights Campaign, and they will tell you that acceptance, particularly in your family, is the way to save lives, where people are brought into the family and loved and accepted and affirmed for who they are. And it is truly life-saving. And the experience that we've had hugging, it's a temporary gesture, but you're right there intimately heart to heart with another person who may have been kicked out of their family, who may have had to move here to Southern California to live their lives authentically, and have left family behind, even if the family supports them. So when we go to events, we are right there going to the people. Now, granted, the pandemic kind of put the brakes on that. So we had to find other ways to show our support. And we did a lot of car parades, and, whether they were part of a national event like Pride or an international event like Pride Month or a National Coming Out Day, Harvey Milk Day, Valentine's Day, which is all about love. We also did some private, personal caravans as well. We've done some drives for food and hygiene products. We have a letter writing campaign for cards and letters to seniors who were in, at risk in quarantine during COVID. And so we have a team of people who write letters and cards to them, and they are part of the LGBTQIA program through the LGBTQ Center. And so they are in residential housing. So we get letters and cards over to them. And we're still trying to think of, ways to go, as we call it, beyond the hug. Because there's something more after you have that initial encounter hugging people. There's always something more that we feel like we can do. And obviously education is important. So we provide online education now that we're, sequestered. And that's been helpful because I think as allies, it's very important for us to take the initiative to educate ourselves about the community. It's not the community's responsibility to bring us along. It's we are stepping into the arena to say, I love you, I affirm you, and now we need to learn more about that community we support. And so we advocate that as well.
That's amazing. Let's talk a little bit about having to pivot due to COVID. You told me an amazing story when I met you about someone who was going to miss their first Pride. And maybe you can talk a little bit about the drive-by parades. You did mention it, but maybe some of the listeners or audience watching are like, what are you talking about? What is that?
So, I think we began to see people find ways to celebrate different milestones during that time. And so the suggestion was, like, well, why don't we do that? And so someone in our group, this is just one instance, but someone in our group knew someone who came out as transgender. And this person and their wife were going to go to Pride events for the very first time in 2019. Of course, we found out in March that the world was going to be shut down. And so we decided to take Pride to them. And so the wife got all of the, planned together to be out in front of their place where they lived. And we got all of our volunteers, who we call huggers, to come out and decorate their cars. And we have bubbles, we have music, and we wrapped around the corner a couple of times, and then they walked to a park, and of course masked. We brought them some gifts, and it was just our way of bringing Pride to them.
So it sounds like they had their own miniature Pride parade.
Absolutely, so we did several of those, but of course, like I said, we cover from just about Santa Barbara down to San Diego for our Southern California chapter. And so we've hit all of the major areas for the Pride parades during Pride: Long Beach, San Diego, areas in Orange County, and of course, from downtown LA to West Hollywood. And then of course the private ones. And, it's fun. You decorate your cars and you put, affirmations of love and acceptance on your, posters that we make, and it's very festive.
Yes,
but still getting that message
festive
out. I remember one weekend was the first weekend everyone could have outside dining, and it just happened to be maybe it may have been like maybe coming out weekend or one of those events. And it was so nice to see the reception, to go down Sunset Boulevard through Hollywood Boulevard, from downtown to West Hollywood, where people were eating outside in cafes and cheering us on and affirming that our message was positive. And it was just a great feeling. Even though we didn't have the intimacy of hugging, there was still the connections. And obviously going through communities where people, in the LGBTQIA plus community live, I was very touching for them as well.
Yes, and you did mention that. I know you're the Southern California chapter leader, and you're talking a lot about Southern California, but there are a lot of places in the US, maybe more rural or more secluded, where people really need this service. And you did say it's a national organization. So if people are listening or watching that are in a place where they really need that, it's national, correct?
Absolutely. The founder of Free Mom Hugs lives in Oklahoma. And so that's kind of where it all started. And like you said, even though we, consider ourselves more liberal here, we still have pockets that are difficult, and we have people who are rooted in certain traditions, family-wise, that, that make it difficult to accept their LGBTQIA family members and loved ones. So if anyone is interested in finding out more about Free Mom Hugs, they can go to freemomhugs.org and you can find a chapter there, and we'll bring you on board. We want to accommodate people who want to join us as allies, and it's Free Mom Hugs, but my husband's with us at every event and is very committed.
Dad's
and
hug too.
Right? And we have siblings, and we have people with children, people without children. It's really open to whoever wants to join the mission of Free Mom Hugs. But yeah, we have a reach across the country, and of course, in some of those areas where it's tougher for people to have their own and live authentically and have support, we actually have a lot of groups in those areas.
That's amazing.
Obviously from mom groups that I've been in and private Facebook groups, there's a greater need for someone to connect to, and there's a greater urgency to have services to provide, mental health support and counseling, and just to support, peer support for parents walking through this as well. And so,
yeah, I did want to talk about that, because I think that is one of the most important parts of the story, not just supporting the people that are coming out, but the parents. I mean, that's really what the organization seems to be founded on, right? It's this mom who was struggling with that, and it's Free Mom Hug. So I think the parents, that's guiding them as well to acceptance and open-mindedness and learning, like you said, education.
Absolutely. And, I think some of us have found other ways to be supported. I really feel like Free Mom Hugs is like a transition from support group to action, in a sense, because as a parent, I won't say that, we had our own personal journey as a family, and I had my own personal journey as a mom, but I sought a private Facebook group where people can really bare their souls and connect with one another. And that group was called Serendipity Doodah for Moms. And many of the members of Free Mom Hugs initially joined that group first. And, like I was saying, like, I don't know, 7 years ago, I was probably around maybe low 400s as far as like when I joined, and it's up to like over 30,000 mothers.
Wow.
And that group is just for mothers. And so that group is available. But my first encounter with Sarah Cunningham was, we were both in that group. And so I think as we grew in our journey with our families, and our loved ones, I think there becomes a shift to do more and become an ally. And I was like, well, I can hug, that's easy. I'm not marching on Washington at this point. I'm not fundraising for someone's political campaign who's going to drive, eventually I probably will, but for the time being, watching Sarah go on tours from Oklahoma through, rural areas all the way to New York City on the initial tour she did with just her and one other mom. I was inspired by that, I'm just amazing how powerful a hug could be. So in 2019, early spring, I thought, well, when Pride Month comes here, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go out and hug, and, it'll be great. And I'll be done with LA Pride, and then I'll wait till next year. And it ended up being a situation where there was not a volunteer to organize for LA Pride in 2019. And the suggestion was that, well, why don't you do it? I was like, oh gosh, I hadn't planned on that. I just wanted to go out and hug people. My husband encouraged me, and I moved from LA chapter lead to the lead for, Southern California. And I can't leave this conversation without saying how wonderful it is to have a team of people on our Southern California chapter leadership team, and all the volunteers who continue to come out either for their first event, second, third, or whatever, and to have like a cohesive group who's, all on the same accord to do the will of the mission of Free Mom Hugs. It's been awesome.
You guys are like Care Bears. Did you ever see the show Care Bears?
Yeah, you know what? I guess we are.
You guys are
All
like Care
rainbow
Bears.
colored, and it gets crazy. Some of the regalia, we get all like our rainbow stuff on. But it's fun and it's festive and it's positive. We had probably the first live Pride event of the year was 2 weeks ago in Palm Springs, and it was a good turnout with our team, and there was a parade, and it's just what we take away. It's just I can't even put it in words sometimes. You're just left with this joy, and fulfillment that if you just made an impact in one life, that would be enough.
Well, let's talk about that, because hugging is very intimate, as you mentioned. I'm sure you get a lot of experiences where people break down and they're sharing their story with you.
Absolutely. I mean, from the very first Pride event, and my husband will speak to that as well, with people having been estranged from their fathers. But, you have an instance where people have not really dealt with how painful it's been to be rejected from their family. Maybe they've adopted a new family and they're living in a new city or with new people, or they've, surrounded themselves with people who care about them, but they're not their family. And there's that longing and that grief. And so right at that moment, it's like there all these feelings come out.
It's like a release, like,
Yeah, absolutely. It's a total release, and people have cried on our shoulders and told us their stories. And I mean, I'm just glad to be there for that. And if they needed to have that release, that we were there and prepared to just support them and love them through it. And it's pretty remarkable, because I remember at the end of the first Pride event we did in LA in 2019, you don't realize that you're still wearing the t-shirt, and you're walking down the street and people are coming and going. And this woman, you could tell she was partying and having a good time. She's like, "Oh, we're waiting for an Uber. Do you have time for one more hug?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And she hugged, and we kind of have a thing where it's like we don't let go until the person we're hugging lets go.
Yeah.
And so I was hugging her, and I could just feel her kind of shaking. And I said, "What are you feeling? What's going on?" And she was just like, I haven't had any contact with my family. They don't care about me. I've made a new life, but I miss them so, so much, and she just cried, and and she was like, "Oh my God, I hadn't expected to feel like that. I had no idea." I'm just like, "Let me get a hot mom hug," And it was very moving, but it obviously, that connection triggered some feelings, and so I think when Free Mom Hugs came out with the content on the hug, it was like, okay, now that we've had that experience, how do we help people who are struggling with grief, missing their families? How do we help people who have other issues? And so beyond the hug is where we want to make sure we have resources and the means to support people beyond the hug.
So let's talk about beyond the hug. What are some of those resources? What is some of that education that you've mentioned so far, so people can check it out or learn more who might be struggling?
So we have our national team sends out care packages. If someone's having a hard time, if someone recently came out, they are sending care packages to let people know you can nominate someone, and they'll send a care package to tell someone that, we're thinking about you and that you're loved. But as a regional group, we try to connect with our local LGBTQIA centers. LA Center, OC, San Diego, Long Beach, Riverside, all the areas. We try to make sure that we get to know and have a relationship with the people in our own community. So if something comes up where there's a need, where it's a mental health need, where it's a housing issue, or whatever it is, we want to make sure that people who come to us, that we're able to provide a resource. And we do that at the regional level and at the national level, because we know how important it is to be able to to be part of the community.
Yeah, and what about parents who are struggling? Maybe their son or daughter just came out and they still love them, but they're like, okay, I don't know I don't know, I maybe they came from a religious background that was against it, or they have some type of belief that's against it, but they're like, I still love my kid. Like, what is the direction that you guys are leading or advising?
So, like I said, it's like we have our, groups that we refer when people, if they come directly to us, or if we meet someone out, a mom who's, like even in Palm Springs, there were kids who just came out, it's their first Pride event, and fortunately for them, their parents brought them,
Yeah, they're
but the
supportive.
parents will tell us on the side, I'm still struggling, my kid is trans, I don't understand it. So we'd really encourage them to go to their local center. Now, granted, right now, everything's available online, so
That's
on the Free
amazing.
Mom Hugs website, there are resources from national teams. If someone was to contact us at any one of our pages on Facebook, we have Free Mom Hugs LA, IE, OC, and San Diego, then we would go into our local resources and provide those for them directly. But the centers, one center that we use, we one of the youth managers at the Long Beach LGBTQ Center, Joel Jamino, does a lot of online educational classes for us. It's basically like allyship 101, but there are programs at almost all these centers just aching for parents to come and find support, and education, and honestly a way to advocate for their kids. I know the center in Long Beach does a lot for parents, to equip them to talk about this, what happens in the schools with their younger kids, and gives them an overview of all the laws that apply to their rights as parents of LGBTQIA kids and the rights of their children. And so, I feel like the first step for us was to really build community. And I know that in chapters across the country and as a national organization, that's a primary focus because, we don't really have to reinvent the wheel with regard to resources. They're out there, and we want to make sure that the folks who are set up to do that with the experts and the social workers and, the people who are affiliated with, even here, the Department of Children's Services, that they're equipped to help families.
And people
And
that have
then
been through it before, other moms.
absolutely, I mean, the Serendipity Doodah group that I've sought out really was dealing with people who had been crushed by their faith, if you want to call it that, or who had difficulty um, making the journey without the support of their church, and or even having the impact of religion cause them to reject their children. So there were a lot of stories in that group. And of course, people are at different places on the continuum from I just found out to let me help you. And so within that moms group, and there's a bunch of groups like that that are private. And because they're connected with social media, it makes it easy for people to connect to people all over the country and possibly all over the world. I truly believe that when we tell our stories, that other people can benefit from, our journey. There's a quote by Brene Brown. I mean, I may not get it exactly correct, but it says something about, one day your story about how you survived will be the guidebook for someone else. And
Yeah,
I
I love her. She's great.
truly believe that. I see that in action all the time.
And finally, this might be a little bit personal, but it is related. Have you gone through a personal transformation as far as your relationship with your son coming out?
Absolutely. I think we all do. Even if you're someone who we would say affirms, folks in the LGBTQIA community, it's different when it's your own kid, because there's concerns and fears about their future. My son's a young Black man. Now he's part of, the LGBTQIA community. So I feel like, it's kind of a double whammy, so the overwhelming grief for the fact that, now there's new fears about acceptance and, hoping that this person, that your kid will have the same rights and the same opportunities as your straight kid. that's a big concern. And then on a personal note, it's like, you're navigating through this whole like uh process that's like, well, this isn't the way I envision my family. How do I talk to my family? Do I talk to my family? What's going to be the perception? What's going to happen when people who don't agree with the fact that we told him we love him and we accept him, are they going to have an issue with that? Well, I mean, it's our nuclear, it's something that's in our nuclear family, but of course we have our larger family to deal with.
Cousins, aunts, uncles, relatives that might not be supportive.
Exactly. And I'm gonna be honest, as Black families, we're not quite there yet where we are fully open and affirming, and if we are, there's a lot of questioning, or maybe this is a phase, or and I'm sure every family goes through that. I'm just talking about my own immediate community, that I feel like there's a lot of work to do. I would love to be able to have more moms of more Black parents join us, so that their kids can be proud of them and know that, not only do my parents support me, but they're willing to go out there and support the community and have representation.
I think that's really amazing what you guys are doing, spreading love, spreading positivity and spreading acceptance. So I think that's amazing. How can people check it out? Can you remind us of the website one more time for resources?
So we have freemomhugs.org. As far as, all the information you need to find a chapter, to find out what our mission is. As far as our Southern California chapter, we do operate our membership out of Facebook. So you can search Free Mom Hugs SoCal, IE for Inland Empire, OC for Orange County, LA for LA, and then San Diego, SD for San Diego within Facebook. And if you message us, and then, you can message us on Instagram. We're Free Mom Hugs SoCal on Instagram. I tend to get all the messages that come through, so I'd be happy to personally address anyone who has a question or would like some guidance on where to go next. I'm happy to do that. And so, that's the first step.
Well, it sounds like an amazing organization where people can get positive resources and learn more about the organization. And again, such a positive thing. You're spreading love, whereas I think, there is a lot of negativity on the internet, but what an amazing thing that people from all over the country can get resources. So that's really great.
Absolutely, Rosie. Yeah. And
thank you so much.
You having that conversation that we had at that wonderful event that was a fundraiser for us, and following up and inviting me to tell you a little bit more about what we do and who we are.
Great. Well, guys, check it out. Again, she had it freemomhugs.org, correct? Yes, and we will have it listed.
We will have it listed. Free Mom Hugs SoCal on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay, great. We will have it listed at the bottom in the show notes on the YouTube, and also if you're driving, we'll have it on the website. And if you're listening to Out of the Box on audio only. Guys, this has been Out of the Box Podcast with Rosie Tran. Check out our website, outoftheboxpodcast.com. And as always, I'm at Funny Rosie on Twitter. Thanks, guys. This has been Out of the Box with Rosie Tran.